Picture this, a garden where the soil becomes more vibrant and nutrient-dense with each passing season, where you're not constantly hauling bags of compost or pouring money into amendments, and where the earth itself just seems to pulse with life. This isn't a gardener's fantasy, it's the reality that sunchokes can create in your garden beds. Today we're diving deep into how this remarkable perennial can transform your approach to soil building and establish what I like to call a forever soil system that works year after year with minimal intervention. The soil crisis. Why we need a revolution. So let's talk about what's really happening beneath our feet. Most gardeners are unknowingly trapped in a vicious cycle where their soil is slowly starving. Modern gardening practices have conditioned us to view soil as nothing more than a medium to hold plants upright while we constantly feed them synthetic fertilizers. The result? Soil structure breaks down, beneficial microorganisms disappear, and we find ourselves buying more inputs every season just to maintain what we had the year before. You might notice your tomatoes aren't as flavorful as they used to be, or your lettuce seems lackluster despite following all the right steps. That's because depleted soil produces depleted food, and no amount of NPK fertilizer can replicate the complex web of minerals, organic matter, and living organisms that truly healthy soil contains. The real tragedy is that this degradation happens invisibly. Your garden might look acceptable on the surface, but underneath, the foundation is crumbling. Compacted layers form where roots can't penetrate, organic matter disappears faster than it's replaced, and the living soil food web that should be teeming with bacteria, fungi, and microarthropods becomes a ghost town. Every bag of compost you buy is a temporary bandage on a systemic problem. But what if, instead of fighting this uphill battle, you could work with nature to build soil that actually improves itself over time? Enter the sunchoke, nature's unsung hero. This is where the sunchoke, also known as Jerusalem artichoke, steps onto the stage as an absolute game-changer. If you've only known this plant as a somewhat invasive perennial vegetable, prepare to see it in an entirely new light. The sunchoke is essentially a living soil factory, and once you understand how it works, you'll wonder why it isn't planted in every garden across the country. The magic starts underground with an extraordinarily aggressive root system that does something most garden plants simply cannot do. It breaks through compacted soil layers like a biological pickaxe. Those thick, fibrous roots can penetrate deep into the earth, sometimes reaching down 3 to 4 feet, fracturing hardpan and creating channels that water and air can follow long after the plant has finished its growing season. But it's not just about breaking up compaction. As these roots grow, spread, and eventually decompose, they leave behind organic matter in the deepest layers of your soil profile, exactly where most garden amendments never reach. You're essentially getting deep tillage and fertilization happening simultaneously through natural biological processes. Above ground, sunchokes produce massive amounts of biomass. We're talking about plants that can easily reach 10 feet tall with thick stalks and abundant foliage. When frost kills back this growth in late fall, all that organic matter falls to the ground and begins decomposing, creating a thick mulch layer that suppresses weeds, retains moisture, and feeds the soil surface. This is where the forever concept really kicks in. Because sunchokes are perennial, they come back year after year from the tubers left in the ground, creating this cycle of soil building without you having to replant or start from scratch each season. The forever soil system, how it works. Creating your own sunchoke-powered soil system is surprisingly straightforward, though honestly, the results are anything but ordinary. The beauty of this approach is that it front-loads a small amount of effort for years of compounding benefits. Start by obtaining organic sunchoke tubers in late winter or early spring. You can often find these at farmers markets, specialty grocery stores, or through seed exchanges with fellow gardeners. Select a bed, or area, where you want to focus on soil improvement. This could be a dedicated space or integrated into existing garden beds with some strategic planning. Plant the tubers about 4 to 6 inches deep and space them roughly 2 to 3 feet apart. Yes, they'll fill in the gaps quickly, but giving them adequate initial spacing prevents overcrowding in the first season and, honestly, makes for much easier management. Water them in well, and then here's the beautiful part. you can largely step back and let nature take over. Sunchokes are remarkably drought-tolerant once established, require no fertilization if you have even marginally decent soil to start with, and, well, they laugh in the face of most pests and diseases that plague typical garden crops. As the season progresses, you'll watch these plants rocket skyward, their roots simultaneously diving deep and spreading wide. Come fall, you have several options. You can harvest some tubers for eating, leaving plenty behind to regenerate next year's patch, or you can simply let the entire system remain undisturbed, allowing maximum soil building to occur. The decomposing roots and fallen foliage create humus-rich soil that gets better with each passing year. This isn't a one-season cover crop you till in, this is a living, breathing soil amendment that persists and, honestly, just intensifies its benefits over time. Beyond soil, companion benefits and sustainable living, the sunchoke's value extends far beyond its underground work. Those towering stalks create beneficial microclimates in your garden, offering afternoon shade for heat-sensitive crops and acting as windbreaks that protect more delicate plants. The late summer flowers are absolute magnets for pollinators, particularly native bees and beneficial insects that help control pest populations naturally. I've watched my sunchoke patches buzz with activity from July through September, creating little wildlife havens that, really contribute to the overall ecological health of my garden. The tubers themselves deserve mention, even though soil building is our primary focus here. These knobby, somewhat alien-looking roots are surprisingly delicious, with a nutty, slightly sweet flavor that works beautifully roasted, pureed into soups, or even eaten raw in salads. They're packed with inulin, a prebiotic fiber that supports gut health, making them a nutritional powerhouse from soil that they themselves helped create. There's something deeply satisfying about eating vegetables that grew in earth they enriched. It closes the loop in a way that feels fundamentally right. From a practical sustainability standpoint, a mature sunchoke patch dramatically reduces your need for external inputs. Calculate what you typically spend on compost, mulch, and soil amendments over the course of several years, and you'll quickly see the economic benefit. More importantly, you're reducing the carbon footprint associated with producing, packaging, and transporting all those materials to your garden. The sunchoke system is local, regenerative, and increasingly productive as time passes. Your sunchoke soil revolution. It's really about getting started today. The optimal time for establishing your sunchoke system is late winter through early spring, typically March through April in most temperate climates, though, fall planting in October can work equally well if you're in milder zones. Start small if you're uncertain. Even a 4x8 foot bed can totally demonstrate the principles and provide enough tubers to expand the following year. And it's best to source your tubers from organic suppliers or fellow gardeners when possible, just to make sure you're starting with vigorous, disease-free stock. Don't overthink the initial planting. These plants are, honestly, nearly foolproof. Your biggest consideration is management, since sunchokes can spread more enthusiastically than you might want in certain garden designs. Strategic placement near property edges, in dedicated perennial beds, or surrounded by barriers can help direct their energy where you want it. Think of them as permanent soil-building infrastructure in your garden design. I encourage you to document your journey. Take photos of the soil before planting, during the growing season, and especially as you begin to see the transformation over subsequent years. Share your experiences with the gardening community using hashtags like #YiJaiForeverSoil and #YiJaiSunchokeRevolution. Because honestly, this movement toward regenerative low-input gardening grows stronger when we learn from each other's successes and challenges. The revolution in your garden doesn't require expensive equipment, complicated techniques, or specialized knowledge. It just requires a willingness to think differently about soil, not as something we must constantly amend and fix, but as a living system we can cultivate to improve itself. Sunchokes offer us that opportunity, creating richer earth year after year while simultaneously providing food, habitat, and beauty. If you found this guide valuable and want to continue exploring innovative, sustainable gardening techniques that actually work in the real world, make sure to subscribe to the Living Soil Lab. Hit that notification bell so you never miss practical strategies that can transform your growing experience. Share this video with fellow gardeners who are ready to break free from the expensive, exhausting cycle of conventional soil management. Together, we're building not just better gardens, but a better relationship with the earth that sustains us. Let's grow something extraordinary.